What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we are going to put some sides over here next to our segments. So when we play the game, we have this thing scrolling, so it's scrolling in a parallax order. As you can tell, it's following the player, but it still moves a little bit and it just keeps on spawning. So we have something on the left side to look at and something on the right side to look at now. So that's what we'll be doing today, guys, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so as mentioned in the little intro, we're going to be working with a side path next to our actual level, so we have something on the sides and it doesn't look like an empty mess, basically. Let's have a look at what we currently have right now. This is what we have. We don't have anything on the side left and right, and that is what we're going to be fixing today. So, simple stuff. We're going to be writing down a simple script, and that script is going to be cycling through Glaciers. Alright, so let's jump right into the script folder. Down here, we're going to right click, create a new one, and that's going to be the Glacier spawner. Alright, so once you have that, let's open up that script and we are going to create some kind of cycle. So basically we're going to be laying down our glacier on both sides of the ramps, not on the ramps, yeah, on both sides of the segments, and then we're going to be cycling through them. So the prefab in the back are going to be pushed in the front, and it's always going to be the same loop like that. We have a clean script over here. Let's actually make it a little bit cleaner, and we're going to start declaring some fields. First off, I'll need a private const float distance to despawn, which means how long are we going to wait until this, well, not despawn, it's a better word right here, to respawn would be a little bit better. So how far away should this glacier be behind the player before we actually push it back in front of him? I'm gonna say 10 meters. You could be going with 5. I think our distance from the camera is about 6 meters, so just make sure you're in the safe range so you don't see it. And then we'll need some public float for scroll speed, which by default I think I'll put in something like -2. So we're gonna have like a additional parallax effect. The glaciers are going to be following the player, but then we're going to scroll them on top of that, but not at the same speed we travel, which is going to create some kind of parallax effect. And then let's go ahead and do public float total length. This is something we'll calculate at the end. And public bool is scrolling. Now this one is a property. I put a capital at the beginning here, and it's going to be a set and get. So to decide whether this is scrolling or not, we have to set this boolean, and since it's something we're doing by, when we click on the screen at first, the player starts moving, and when he dies we gotta stop it. It's something we're doing from outside, so I decided to just put it inside of a property like this. Next up, we have the private float, scroll location, and the private transform, player transform. These one are for the scroll location, so how far away are you in your current scroll, and you'll see what I mean by that in a moment. And then finally the player transform. We need to know where the player is so we can reposition our glaciers. So in a start, private void start, we're going to say player transform is going to be equal to game object. Find game object with tag. Since we only have one player, make sure you don't put the little s here, the sneaky s, and we're going to find the object that has the player tag. Then we're going to say dot transform. Because we only need the transform, we don't need the game object of the player. We just need to know where he is right now. Actually, even less than that, we only need to know where he is on the z-axis. Next up, we have the private void update. At the very first line in this red flow, we're going to check, is it scrolling right now? If it's not scrolling, so notice the exclamation sign. If it's not scrolling, we're going to return, make sure we don't do anything. Else, we'll do scroll location plus equal scroll speed times time.delta time. So every single frame we're going to increment this value right here. Then we have to calculate where is going to be the glacier on the next frame. So vector 3 new location is going to be equal to the position in z plus the scroll location. So let's do something like player transform position.z plus scroll location. Wrap this in a parenthesis just like that, because we need to make sure this is a vector 3, and what we have right here is a float. To make sure it's a vector 3, we're going to say times vector 3 dot forward. Remember that forward is a unitary vector, as you can tell down here in the tooltip, 0, 0, 1. So it's going to be 0, 0, and then the number that we multiply it with. And then we're going to go ahead and move the actual glacier. So transform the position is equal to the new location. Alright, so let's give this a try. The script isn't done just yet, but I'd like to actually just give it a try, see how it looks. Now this is how we're going to be setting this up. I am quickly going to put a segment just here so I can have a reference on my left and on my right. And this is how we'll set this up. So create a empty game object. I'll call this one Glacier, like this, and add the Glacier spawner component. Now beneath this object, we're going to go under the asset prefab folder and grab one of these three and just start laying them down left and right here. Don't worry about the typo in there, it's just a small mistake. Alright, so I have these three Glacier right here. I'm going to take one and then just put it here, say at -7 or -6. -6.5 could do. And just make sure it is right at the beginning over here. So it's really just at the beginning over there. And it's inside of the ground. Now this is going to be my first one. I can play around with it, can be playing with the size, can be playing with really anything. Just make sure it is something that looks good. Something really important though, once you're done placing it, make sure you set it under the Glacier. And now for the whole scrolling mechanic to work, I need to have a specific setup because the algorithm is going to be quite simple. The specific setup is that every time that you have one of these on the left, the next one beneath it has to be on the right. So we're going to be scrolling through left, right, and then left, right again. So let's go ahead and actually place this one on this side, why not? Maybe make it a little bit taller. And then we just go on like this. So the last one was on the right side, this one has to be on the left side. So go ahead and create some kind of route like this. Of course you can duplicate this. I'll be duplicating this, putting it on the other side. Maybe playing with the size a little bit, even playing with the rotation. Give it some random rotation like this, why not? And we just go on like this. So this was the fourth one, now we need to have one on this side. So what about taking this one, putting it here? You get the whole point. Make sure you never go inside of the track and keep on doing this for a little while. Something I just realized as I was doing it is that you're going to have to apply the new Atlas material on top of this, and make sure you don't put it on the canvas. I almost just put it on the canvas. And the only reason we do that is because we want to see the actual result. If you look at it from too far away, as you can tell, this one pops out, but it really doesn't. It's just that it's not going under the shader. So make sure you apply the material as you put it here, and if you're going to do like me and duplicate these, of course, do it early. Alright, so when you have enough Glacier, just make sure that you have the rotation like we explained. So one on the left, right, left, right, and so on. So just make sure everything is fine like that. And we are going to start calculating the size of this thing. So what I mean by calculating is we're simply going to be using those big grids we see here and checking approximately what is the length of all of this. So we start at 0. This is 10, 20. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and this looks like it's about, we could say 55. So you're going to remember that number, go back on the Glacier, and put it here in the total length. Now, once this is done, we're going to head back inside of the code and code this very last part we need. What's that? Code the very last part we need over here to make sure this actually keeps on going all the time. So it's a really simple function. We do a if transform dot get child at the index 0. So it's going to start with the very first one on the actual list, and then transform position dot z. If that one is smaller, so if the very first Glacier is smaller than player transform dot position dot z minus distance to spawn, respawn, then we're going to go ahead and say, well, we just reached a point where we need to take two of our objects, the two first one, and put them at the very back. So we do a transform, get child, at the index 0 we take it, and we say transform, actually we don't say transform, we say local position, that local position, it's plus equal to the vector3 dot forward times the total length, so times 55 in my case. Now you're going to take the same exact object, so get child at the index 0, and this time you're going to say set sibling index, and you're going to set that to transform the child count. This way you can push it back inside of the list, and now you have a new object at the index 0. So since we're actually swapping two of those at a time, we're going to duplicate these two lines and just copy them down here. So it's going to take the first object, move it, then set the first object as the last object, then do it again because we have two objects at the same time. Okay, so let's compile this thing, and I'm going to remove the center 10, press and play. Let's have a look how this works. So does this even work? It doesn't seem to work because we actually never scrolled this thing. Okay, so let's head back here and say, we're just going to test this out. We're going to say in the start is scrolling is equal to true. Just for testing purpose, of course. Let's press play, and as you can see, we have some scrolling going on already. And if it goes 10, so about here, it pops back at the top here. And I might want to actually change this so it doesn't like have a gap right here, but I don't think it's really visible, and I don't think actually it matters so much. It still looks good, as you can see here. We have this going on. So if we play at the same time, you're going to see that these actually move with the player, they just don't move as fast. And we might need to add a little bit more because we still see some popping. Now if you want this to move faster, you can actually do that by incrementing the Glacier scroll speed over here on the right side. And so we go down even more, it's scrolling even faster, actually 3 times faster. Let's do that more. You're gonna see that we have this going on now, and it might be a little bit confusing, but it might be also very cool. Now I'm going to try and do it on the other side, see how it looks. So what if we scroll on that side? So as you can tell, this one doesn't work simply because the algorithm is checking if there's object behind us, not in front. So if you're going to scroll on the other way, then make sure that you actually you don't use the player transform.z minus the distance bound. Use something else. So use player transform.z and then the distance bound in front of you, make it something really, really big. Now, I like the actual scroll speed at say -4, -5, or -6 even, and that is actually what I'll be using for my settings. Now all we need is to make sure we toggle this on and off, so on when we press on the screen, and then off when this happens, so it doesn't keep on scrolling while you're dead. What we can do here is head over to our player motor, which I think is the one that controls these things, and we have the start running. Is this where we start running? I don't think so. Maybe it's the game manager, yeah. Over here. So if the game is not started and we tap, then we go ahead and we start running. Now we're going to do a find object of type Glacier spawner is scrolling. It's going to be equal to true. Now what if we die? We can do the same exact thing down here on the ondef and say is equal to false instead. Let's head back in the Glacier spawner, make sure we remove this one here under the is scrolling, and we should now have something that is working. Okay, so this is my test right here. Like I said, I might want to add a little bit more at the end, but right now this is working just fine. Or what I could do instead is have a shader that bends it a little bit more. So the bend world, we could say it bends 003. So yeah, even with a little bit more bend, I still need to keep on going here. The Glacier are quite high, so you're going to be seeing them from quite far away. But just increment the amount of Glacier you have and also increment the total length of your prefab. So guys, that's actually where we're going to be ending today. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the Patreon post, check out the Discord, check out everything in the description down below. Make sure you click on the video right now popping on the screen so you can head over to the next one where we're going to be doing the initial camera you have in the game. So just a different camera shot when we start the game. Alright guys, I will be catching you in the next one.